Hey, what's up? KamiDura. Hey, what's up? KamiDura here. Okay, so I know I haven't posted in 5 months. Not a great start for me, I know. But hey, man, I just been living life. Nah, I'm playing. But trust me, I got a lot of future content coming up in the works. I've been really busy in my outside life, so I haven't really had time to do anything other than what I've been doing. But I'm coming back, starting now. Enjoy the video. When it comes to anime media and how their respected creators explain the supernatural elements and/or abilities of the characters in their fictional worlds, by far my favorite to refer to is Hunter x Hunter, the power system that is Nen, the restrictions that bind the users, and how it ultimately ties into the world and the characters created. No media before and after has really had a grasp on me and had me question where I would fit in the world and what my capabilities would be more than when I first watched Hunter x Hunter. So, for this video, I wanted to try to take the Hunter Nen Quiz and see what type of Nen user I'm categorized as, and possibly come up with my own abilities in Hatsu. Okay, so, full transparency. The first time I took this test, I got Specialist. No, I'm not even joking, I took the test on multiple websites, even this weird one. Technically, I'm categorized as a Specialist, which is interesting. The possibilities are endless, but it's a bit too easy and doesn't really make for a good video in my eyes. So I took the test again, changed some answers I was a bit iffy on, and I got Manipulator. Yay. I don't know, for some reason it feels weird to call myself a manipulator. It's Black Air Force energy. Still, manipulation is one of the better, more complex foundations of Nen. Manipulators have the ability to end the fight in one strike, sometimes before it even begins if their conditions are met. In the Hunter x Hunter world, manipulators are described as logical people who advance at their own pace. They are all for arguments and tend to want to keep their families and loved ones safe. On the other hand, when it comes to pursuing their own goals, they do not listen to what others have to say. So as simple and straightforward as it may sound, turns out there's a lot that actually goes into being a Nen user, as I found out racking my brain trying to figure out what I wanted to do with this category. Seriously, I spent like 2 out of the 12 hours spent on this ability just trying to come up with the names. Furthermore, how do I want to use it? Do I want to manipulate others? Do I want to manipulate myself? Do I want to manipulate inanimated objects and/or an element? Not only that, but I had to figure out how I could use manipulation in diverse situations, whether in everyday life or even in battle. Because if I'm going to be manipulative, I'm going to be manipulative every chance I get. Wow, I would absolutely be a villain. I also wanted to mention that I wanted to use my Hatsu to the best of its ability and use the Nen Ring for reference. If we look at the manipulator's Nen Ring, we see that their second best ability is Emission, which comes in at a whopping 80%. Tied for second place, both Enhancer and Conjurer being at 60%, and last place being Transmutation at 40%. Well, technically I guess Specialist comes in at last place since it's at 0%, but technically that's where I originally placed, so I don't know. Anyway. Okay, so if we base this on the thought that I am a Nen master, or at least a skilled Nen user, and I think we are, with at least a good amount of aura reserves, we first have to come up with an ability and gimmick that best reflects my personality and how I view manipulation. And the ability I created, I've named Kaime Mold, Black Ink Puppet. Much like the character Morel Macronasi, who was introduced in the Chimera Ant arc, my persona carries a physical giant weapon, a dip pin to be specific, which then conjures pin nibs to connect to the dip pin, and if needed and not using Nen, uses as a spear weapon. But when using Nen, and eventually the Hatsu, emits a ball of aura which I transmute into ink and have linger around me to dip the pin into and spread the ink. Once those conditions are met, I either splatter the ink or a glob of ink on whatever surface I want, and then emit my aura into the ink to serve as the nucleus for the ink puppets. The reaction to my aura then rises the ink and shapes the ink into whatever I design the aura to be, whether it be simple items like ropes, dolls, people and animals, and even various soldiers and warriors. Also, something to note is these objects and puppets' ink colors are able to change to match whatever I imagine them to be or may be referring to make them more realistic. The maximum quantity I can divide my aura evenly between relatively weak puppets at once is roughly 100 puppets. But in order to make these puppets more responsive and complex, I'd have to put 5 to 10 times the amount of aura in, resulting to only manipulating 10 to 20 constructs at a time. However, for constructs that do not need to be manipulated, say a duplicate of an inanimated object, No aura core needs to be made, but does have to be more carefully crafted and detailed by a quick sketch and fill. The second and final ability is the ability Crosshatch, Pinstroke Prison. This ability requires me to splatter ink onto whatever surface and then emit a substantial amount of aura into the ink, causing the ink to stretch and constrict into parallel lines, making the lines unbreakable and impenetrable. Then uses emission and manipulation to chase the enemy at will to eventually trap the enemy by closing in on itself, or to leave in hiding to spring a trap and catch for strategic advantage. This ability can either have a cage-like resemblance or a bagged net. Of course, abilities like this can seem overpowered at first glance, but have obvious weaknesses. But the thing about the Nen power system is the balance needed to make these abilities work. The more restrictions you set for yourself, the better your outcome for your ability. So here are some blatant weaknesses to the techniques. So the first weakness was slightly glossed over, but the weapon itself does not use a form of conjuration. I would have to carry the pin at all times, which leads to quick fatigue and low stamina in high activity situations. This restriction, of course, works in favor with the fact that in order for the ink to be created, I would first have to transmute my aura into ink, which again, if we refer to the manipulator Nen ring, is on the complete other side of the manipulation class. Alongside this, another restriction is the amount I would have to refresh this ability's activation. Because ink tends to dry relatively quickly, every once in a while I would have to dip the pen into the ink to be able to use it consistently. The second blatant weakness is with both of these techniques. Aura is being distributed amongst various puppets and reactive traps, leaving me more vulnerable to enemies until my aura has returned back to me, from either constructs being dispelled or being destroyed. At the end of the day, as real as I can make them seem, ink puppets can still be distinguished from real constructs and can be destroyed when only having the nucleus. Thirdly, and this was the first weakness I came up with and all artists can relate to, and this is something I really like. Art block is still a very real thing. If I'm going through fatigue or my imagination isn't as vivid in moments of stress and drowsiness, the constructs I create can be misinterpreted and disfigured due to a lack of attention to detail. As far as my desired Nen abilities and concepts go, that's about as far as I'll go for this video today. When I originally came up with the idea for this video, I had a whole different outlook on manipulation and manipulating people to my benefit, but in the end it didn't really fit who I am as a person, so I took the time to think of something that tied back into my roots a bit. The possibilities are only bound by the user's imagination and overall moral ambiguity. Much like in the real world, it's not about the amount of power you have or whatever status you may have, how you choose to use that power to your and the world around you's advantage. And that, for me, is what makes Nen the most adaptive and fascinating power system to date. But hey, if you enjoyed this video and would like to see more content like this in the future, please show support for this channel by giving a like, share, or even subscribe. Hell, even take the quizzes mentioned in this video for yourself, then come back and share what class you got and what abilities you came up with. I'm genuinely curious. Until then, I've got some work to do myself, like editing this video, so I'll see you around next time. This has been KamiDura. Peace.
That's some bullshit.